Okay, good afternoon. So here with Dr. Peterman. So the question is, following the crowd, why is that important to be aware of, and how can that affect your health? Dr. Peterman, what do you think about that?
It's really an interesting question. I think most of us want the accolades of our peers. We don't like to be the fifth wheel. We don't want to be somebody on the outside looking in. Nobody likes to be odd man out, odd girl out. It's the kind of thing that if you don't, you have to pretty much follow the crowd, or you have to be a strong person and know your own mind. I would say it comes down to knowing your own mind and having the courage to follow your principles. It's kind of like joining a fraternity. Would you join a fraternity if you knew that you had to go through hazing? Okay, it's not a big deal. People always look at it as, oh, the poor person is going through hazing. Okay, let's step back a minute. You made it. You're a pledge. All of a sudden, you made it. You're in the fraternity. Well, what does that mean? That means you're going to do exactly what those people did to you to somebody else later, and you didn't like it. So are you going to go ahead and do what the crowd did, which you know is absolutely disgusting and wrong? Are you going to do that too, just because now you're part of the crowd? Now it becomes a morality issue. People always think only of well, they did this to a pledge. They did this to a person who was trying to become part of it. What about the person that, went through that? At some point, somebody needs to stand up and say, wait a minute, if the crowd is going to go and do this, do I need to be doing that? Is this good for me? Is it good for my life? Could it cause me major problems later? Is following the crowd a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe it's a good thing if you're a fan of a football team or whatever. You're out there following the crowd and you have your colors on and everybody's cheering and you're with all your friends. Hey, that's one thing. But if the following the crowd says you need to go be doing this or doing that, people follow the crowd on the internet. Sometimes they die. What am I talking about? There are all kinds of diets on the internet, and people will say, oh, everybody's doing this. You need to try it. It's a grapefruit diet, or it's this kind of diet, or that kind of diet. And people will, quote, follow the crowd because everybody's trying this thing. Well, maybe it's not good for you. Did you ever question that maybe the crowd is wrong? Am I right about this? I can tell you I am right about this because the crowd went with this low-fat revolution 30, 40 years ago. Everything was low-fat. We got to have low-fat. Now we have the most obese people on the planet. We've never had people who are so fat in this country and out of shape and in poor health. 2 generations now are so obese that they can't have a healthy life anymore. Why is there a minor emergency center being built on every corner in almost every community? Because they're going to be needed as people my age. I'm nearly 70. People between 55 and 80 are flooding into these places because now they're paying the piper for everything that they did when they followed the crowd in this low-fat revolution, and they bought into all of it. What about, oh, salt is bad for you. Can't have any salt. You know what? You can't live without salt. And your body is very interesting. You eat too much salt, the body says, ooh, that's salty. You know what? I'm not going to eat something that's too salty. That's the way the body works. So a lot of times people can't eat a lot of salt because they're on medications, which if you eat salt, it makes you sick. That's different. But just a normal person, if you starve yourself for this or for that, and you're following the crowd because everybody else did it, we all have paid the price. I bought into the low-fat revolution for a long time until I realized there was a group of people called Inuits, called Eskimos. 70% of their diet was fat before the white man came along and convinced them that maple syrup and donuts was a great idea. And now they have the highest proportion of diabetes of any people on earth, and the worst dental problems. They never had any dental problems. It's silly. Follow the crowd. Maybe I would say no. You have to know yourself. You have to know what you believe. There is no saying, if you don't know what you believe, stand for something or you fall for anything. That's how you avoid following the crowd. I think following the crowd a lot of times is detrimental to your health. So I know I'm on a rant, but that's just the way I've seen it in 68 years of my life. I've seen how this works, and it's kind of frightening.
How do you think human psychology is affected in the aspect of groupthink? Do you think that the energy between multiple humans put together can create an essence or a facade of these ideas that you should or shouldn't follow?
Of course. Societal pressures, you're talking about pressure from society to not be different than somebody else, to go along with this. I'll give you an idea now. There's so many things that we cannot say because it's, quote, politically incorrect. Well, yeah, in the past there were things that were said that were improper, but people had a tougher skin. And so I'm not saying that those things were correct, but we survived. And the groupthink now is that you have to say things a certain way. That's groupthink now. Well, in societies work on pendulum theory. You're going to have people very, very conservative, like in the 50s, and then all of a sudden, here come the 60s. Like a friend of mine said, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. You get very liberal in the 60s, and then in the 70s it kind of swings back a little bit, in the 80s a little more, and now we're going out there and everybody's going to grow pot and everybody's going to be high and everybody's going to live a happy life. And so it flows back and forth. And I love the quote from Aristotle. People don't know it's Aristotle. He's talking about the children have absolutely no respect for their parents. They're crazy. They wear weird clothes. They blah, 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 blah. And you find out it's a quote from Aristotle 2,000-something years ago. We've always had groupthink. We've always had this idea that we have to go do what everybody else is doing. I mean, that's human nature.
Gotcha.
And there's not a lot of people that will go against the grain because they really don't want to be branded weird. I never seem to care. So, I was voted most likely to blow up the world when I was in high school because I enjoyed science. Everybody said, "You're weird." Okay, well, here I am. Maybe I can help.
Here you are. That's right.
So that's pretty much the way that works. I think that following the crowd, sometimes if you let it's the wrong thing, like the low-fat revolution can be detrimental to your health. So just keep your eyes open. If it doesn't make sense, don't do it. Don't go along with everything that everybody's doing just because everybody's doing that. How many times have you as a child or your children have said, yeah, but Sally's doing it or Johnny's doing it, and come on, I did that too. Every kid's ever have done that. But the difference was, in my case, my parents said, "You're not doing it, I don't care."
They're looking out for you either way.
Oh, I don't know. They just want to spend the money. Whatever it was that I wanted. So that was pretty easy. But that's pretty much where we are on that. And that's another group of thoughts that Dave and I have had, and we've talked about it, and thought maybe you'd like to think about it too. Until next time, for Challenge Life Better, this is Jerry.
And David.
And we wish you to be well.
Be well. Thank you.